David Carradine and Sylvester Stallone battle across the states in Death Race 2000, Roger Corman's greatest film. Tonight on Cinema de Fromage.
The year 2000. America is a vast speedway. People line the streets to witness the greatest drivers on earth in a race from sea to shining sea.
This is a death race.
You finish first, or not at all. Death Race 2000. Every car a deadly weapon. Every spectator a potential point. It's a cross-country road wreck, and the traffic is murder.
Who are you, anyway?
Best driver on earth.
I don't want you to die.
He was built by the world's finest surgeons to drive the fastest car ever designed, and nothing can stop him now. Death Race 2000, rated R.
All right. Now, this is a film. Welcome to Cinema Fromage. Your host, Dean Feynman, with my co-hosts, Jen, Kente, and the not here today, hope he's feeling better soon, Joshua. So, we've just seen Death Race 2000 from I always get this wrong, 1975, I believe. This is basically what I would say a comic book brought to life. So how is everyone doing, by the way?
I'm doing fine.
It's always fine. Nobody's miserable when I call. Jen, how about you? You've got to be something to say.
Oh yeah, I'm wow, yeah. Terrible. It's actually I'm gonna make a confession. Right, I remembered this movie so much better than it actually is.
Oh.
And watching it this time, I mean, I could actually feel the sadness meter in my entire soul.
Oh.
I remember this movie just being so amazing, and when I watched it this time, it wasn't just that I was let down, it was that I was actually sad.
Oh, so you're a victim of your own anticipation of the film.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Oh, that's not good.
Terrible. I mean, it was pretty bad. There was plenty of pretty bad.
Oh yeah, it's a Roger Corman film. So two things: it's going to be cheap and thrown together really quickly, and without any thought towards anything but making sure there's TNA on the screen and violence to make sure that the kids would go to the drive-ins and see these films. There has never been. His films are not about quality. They never have been, but they're entertaining.
And to that end, it didn't disappoint. To that end, it didn't disappoint.
But were you not entertained still?
I actually was entertained. I just remembered it being
better,
so much grander than it actually was. And then when I saw it, I was just like, "Oh my god, that's such a little tiny movie. That's so terrible."
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's an epic idea done on the cheap, and it shows. It really does. But if you really want to feel better about the film, watch the remake and realize, oh yeah, it could have been a lot worse. Because those films are just awful.
Well,
they don't even go with the plot, for goodness sake.
I promise I will have something to say about the latest Death Race as we go forward, because I did watch that very recently. So I promise.
When did that? Which one? When did this one come out?
The latest one, it came out earlier this year.
Okay, I didn't know about that. See, I have not been keeping up. I just remember the ones from the early 2000s, which were just awful. Anyways, well, seeing as you were disappointed, why don't you give us a little rundown of the plot of this movie?
Well, okay, so let's see. Actually, I had the grid in front of me, and now I don't have.
It's okay.
But
Kente's helping you here.
Yeah. Kinte, where's my
Right in the messages. Right here in the messages. Right here. Over here. Messages. Oh, God.
observation? Because I think this is sort of hilarious. In the 2000, America is a totalitarian brink of collapse. The most popular sport in this dystopia is the trans-con. Earn points for logging the fastest time. Oh my God, seriously. And mowing over the most innocent pedestrian. This year's competition includes Frankenstein, who is rumored to be more machine than man, and the tough as nails machine gun. Some of them have a plan to stop the race. That's it.
Can I go out on a limb? I think that synopsis was not written for the original release of this film. Can we go on a limb? I feel like that's something that was done in way.
Yes, I think so, because
Like done before the movie was actually shot.
possible.
Yeah, I guarantee that wasn't the original synopsis.
No. Oh, well, okay. Well, you know what, Kente? Why don't you give your impressions of the film, and maybe, like, when was the first time you saw this one?
I saw it as a kid.
Okay.
I was probably a teenager.
You saw this as a kid? With
Yeah.
all that gratuitous violence and nudity.
I've seen a lot of stuff I shouldn't have seen.
It explains a lot. It does.
But I remember, like, very similar to Jen. I was looking forward to seeing it because I remembered this movie to be very good. And I remember enjoying it when I watched it. And then I watched it last night, and then I had to finish it today as well. I started watching it last night. I'm going to tell you how much I didn't enjoy it.
Ooh.
I started watching it, and 10 minutes into it, because my buddy was here, and we're about to watch it, and he suffered through some of the movies this year with me. And about 10 minutes into it, I said, well, at least it's a short run time. It was only like an hour and 16 minutes.
Yeah.
So then I said, you know what? I'm not going to make you watch this. So I turned it off, even though I knew that there was a chance I may not be able to see it before, the time. And then you're going to laugh what we watched in its place.
What?
Raising.
Oh, no. And did that one hold up?
Actually, we enjoyed watching that. But it wasn't as good as I remembered it to be.
No.
But
they never are.
But we actually enjoyed it. So there was parts where we're laughing and all of that. But anyway, it has a really cool ending. But then I came home early, so I was able to watch it in the middle of the day. And it was hard. It was a chore to get through it. It was not fun to watch. And I tried to get into it, because I'm like, oh, David Carradine, and he's playing this mysterious character. And then it's like, nah. And like, I like David Carradine, but it just didn't have what I hoped that it would have in the movie.
Right.
And Sylvester Stallone was so freaking annoying.
Oh God, he was.
No, he was just himself.
This is pre-Rocky, so
yeah.
As for a racing movie, this movie was so slow. I mean,
it just felt slow because it did go by quickly. It's only an hour and 16 minutes.
The pacing was so. The pacing was sticky. It transitionally felt sticky. Like every time there was a pause, it was almost hard to accept that pause would ever get unstuck, because every single little plot point felt like they were going to stay there and be mired forever. Oh God, it was just awful. Oh my God.
Well, especially the scenes with the revolutionaries. That's where it just slows down to nothing. Now,
wait, the best scene though was when Sylvester Stallone got his ass whipped by Frankenstein.
Oh, that was such a bad fight. That was, you saw that. It's like, okay, we've got fight marked there. No time to choreograph. Do what you can, guys, to make this look good.
I just like seeing Sylvester Stallone get his ass whooped.
Yeah, this is pre-Rocky, so he was allowed to get his ass whooped. Not a good boxer in this movie.
Not at all. He was a weenie.
Oh my god! But and here's the thing: David Carradine did not come across as like this badass. He looked in that suit. He looked so skinny and nothing. Right?
Yeah.
He always looked like really skinny and uncomfortable. And it's like he's supposed to be menacing. And if they'd gotten a bigger actor or a bulky guy like they would have in the '80s, then he might have had some menace to him. But he
Is that where the Gimp from Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, that's what he looks like. The Gimp from Pulp Fiction.
Right, yeah.
But with less muscle.
Yeah, it probably was based on that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
it does feel good, though, that you could be a sex symbol having lost, your arms, your hands,
yes,
your legs. He intimated
looking like this for the first half of the movie until he took his mask off. I'm Frankenstein. Okay.
And he intimated that he might have lost his junk as well. So he might have had that.
That was all a lie, and we found out that there were several Frankensteins, and he was just the latest of the Frankensteins.
Right.
Okay, so brings us actually, ironically or not, to the latest remake of Death Race, which is always Death Races are always sort of built on these ridiculous premises, right? But in this particular one, the same thing. Basically what we learn is that Frankenstein is an ideal, and Frankenstein must exist no matter what. And so they will keep continuing to choose a new Frankenstein.
And pretend he's the same one, right?
Was so hokey. Yeah.
Right.
What was so hokey, but and sort of, I mean, the one that I watched that I, ironically or not, had Zach McGregor. And the one that I just watched was the whoever they choose every single time, whoever they choose to be in the role of the, hey, we're the protagonist, loosely the protagonist. They always get such, think they were going to be really awful actors, and they end up just awful. I mean, the only one that I can think of, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the only one I think of that was actually good was the one with was it Statham that was in it?
I don't think any of them were good. So, I mean, if you're saying the best of the worst, I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so long since I saw it. I purged it from my memory. Yeah, it might be. I purged it from my memory, to be honest. Anyone got Wikipedia up there?
And that one I think was actually pretty good. That one was actually pretty good. But all of the other ones, the main protagonists are so weak that it's hard for me to even think that
they should have had Arnold as Frankenstein. Or no, better yet, forget it. If you go with this movie, you should have. This is the only time. And no offense to The Rock, he's a nice guy and everything, but an actor, he's not. This is the only time that you could put a pro wrestler in that role and it would work, because he could do his pro wrestling shtick. Because basically all of the characters in this movie are basically like wrestling characters. They're over the top. They're symbolic. One, I mean, for God's sakes, one's a Nazi. I don't know why that passed, but hey, I guess the year 2000 was a lot, more lenient to Nazi propaganda and white supremacy. Who knew? But they were all like these, over the top caricatures. So if you'd gotten wrestlers to play those parts, probably been more effective. And then you could have had somebody like the Undertaker playing Frankenstein, which would have worked, right? And you've got this menacing, brooding guy who looks like a monster, and and then he could have played that part. And it turned out, oh, he's not really this guy. He's, he suddenly starts talking like a normal person. But that's not the film we got. No, instead we got Dave Carradine in a gimp suit, looking very skinny and very scrawny. Luckily, he's a driver, so he doesn't have to look big and burly. But they shouldn't put him in action scenes. He looked terrible.
Well, with that, the movie that came out the same year, it's basically the same premise.
Which one was that?
It was our first film, Rollerball.
You know what? I was going to put because if you look at it, the end of the movie, the pseudo end of the movie, when Frankenstein's triumphant, what happens? They're chanting Frankenstein, Frankenstein. And all I'm thinking of is at the end of Rollerball where they're chanting Jonathan, Jonathan. It's like, yeah, this is very similar. And it's the same kind of theme where the lone sports guy strikes out against the big bad government by doing what the sports guy does, and somehow that wins the day.
Let me see the date of see which one actually came out first.
Well, I bet you Rollerball came out first, and Corman said, we got to get something out similar to that. Let's knock this off. We got 2 weeks. Let's go.
June 25th, Rollerball. This came out April 27th, so it beat before Rollerball.
That's interesting. Huh.
Norman Jewison copied.
Yeah, right. Well, here's why I know that's not true, because Norman Jewison actually takes time to put a film together, unlike Mr. Corman, who's like, okay, you've got this many cameras, you got this many weeks, you got this kind of budget for squibs and explosions, and I go to the local shop and find some girls who will take their clothes off for the camera, and then we'll write a script to put that all together, and we'll fix it in editing.
Copy.
Copy, paste, boom. Here's thinking. There's weird things about this film. In some ways, this film is very dated and cheap, and in some ways, it's got all the bad qualities of what's happening today in film. And sort of guess them. The action scenes, to make up for the fact they didn't have any really good shots of driving aside from a couple, they cut them together in such weird ways, and it's all these really quick random cuts that you don't really figure out what the hell you're looking at, and that represents the action. And it's like, oh, this is familiar. This is like a lot of films nowadays where they don't bother to choreograph a fight scene. They just throw a bunch of random shots together, and they say, there we go. If you're confused, and we'll add shaky cam to it to make it better. But, this kind of...
Well, in this one, they actually used that really awful, jarring thing where they actually had things move at slow speed and then
speed them up.
Post editing go really fast, and it did that part did not age well at all.
You know what film did get away with that, and even though it's still obvious and kind of silly, is Road Warrior. They did the exact same thing in Road Warrior, but the scenes were a lot more exciting and interestingly shot that you kind of ignore that. In this one, it's very jarring, and it's like, oh, look at him go around that corner really stupidly fast. Oh, okay.
Well,
and watch that bird fly by fast too.
Also, if we could make a contrast here between Warrior, because cars, the in the race itself, and this is where Death Race, you can see there's been in the first and this one, they start out with all of the drivers basically trying to get to one location real quick, right? Mm-hmm. And they take different routes, which at all. But so they take
to get through the fastest with the most kills.
Right. So okay, and I mean, there's you got to leap in order to get there. And okay, maybe their navigators go, yeah, it's going to be better if we get to St. Louis by going Pittsburgh, or it's going to be way better if we go by Washington D.C. Whatever. I think there is a missing central point that probably film, which in later Death Races did sort of get a little bit more explained, like it feels a little bit more institutionalized, so it feels like there's an actual... Remember the movie The Running Man, where it's like...
I try not to, but yeah.
Our global... See, I think they were trying to go for that kind of dystopian idea where, the masses are kind of lulled to sleep by the graphic violence and over the top. Everybody wants to root for their favorite team. But what they failed to do was make anybody other than the resistance and the roadkills a real part of the movie. So we never actually see that anybody is even interested in this race except for the people that are reporting it.
Well, they had that big, huge crowd of 30 or 40 people sitting there in that stand in the beginning.
Right.
Maybe another 20 or so at the end of the race. and America was completely abandoned for the rest of the race. It's a strange film.
Except who was walking on the road.
Yes.
With the tire.
Yes.
Remember? Yes, he's the only.
My favorite's the fisherman who, you know,
yeah, I was just about to say that.
That is my favorite scene in the whole thing. Machine Gun Joe runs him down and then spins the back tire over his head afterwards.
Yeah, that's my second favorite scene. Yeah,
and my favorite line.
Why was he running in a straight line?
Well, because he was dumb.
Right, he's a bozo.
And you know, he was told to by the director. But my favorite line in the movie is right in the beginning where they're introducing us. Machine Gun Joe, loved by hundreds, hated by thousands. It's like, what a great line. Loved by hundreds. It's like this guy's in this race and everyone knows nobody likes him except for a couple of deviants and sociopaths, I guess. But so it's a weird film because it's trying to and it isn't. It's trying to pretend it's saying something, and it's not. It's because it's bad. It's trying to world build, but it doesn't. Like there's so many holes that you go, and after a while you just don't care. But it's sort of like going, okay, you've got a bad government that apparently the government is run outside of the United States, and there's some sort of dictatorship and possibly a theocracy. Hard to tell. But that's it.
Yeah, Jen, you
don't understand anything
going on with your mic, Jen.
She's chewing or something.
Go ahead.
But she's sort of and that's it. And it's just okay. That's what it is, and it's bad because it's totalitarian. And there's a couple of hints that the economy's gone, and I guess something with the telephone.
The French.
The president makes a speech where he blames the telephone problems on the French. So I don't know what that means. And maybe that was a line that referred to something in the 70s as a problem that was happening in the States. Hi, hon. So the thing with the movie is it doesn't world build enough. It sort of gives a small skeleton, but it doesn't matter because it's only about this race. And the race itself doesn't make any sense. Like, is it designed to cull the population? Is it just to be a spectacle to make people, you know, like as Jen was saying, just sort of bread and circuses kind of thing? Or is it what? I don't know. Like, I mean, even the rules don't make sense. Is it the most kills and the fastest time? Or you have the fastest time, it doesn't matter if you have the most kills? Because if that were the case, then you could just, you know, circle around and try to run down as many people as possible and come in fourth and still win the race.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Find an orphanage and run over a bunch of babies. They were high points, if I remember correctly.
That's what I was saying about the future death races. Future death races turned into, like, you know, at one point.
Jen again. There.
Is it me again? Can you hear me?
I hear her just fine.
Oh, I don't hear anything.
It's weird.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay. Well, in future death races, they turn it into like a.
Is anyone speaking? Because I cannot hear a thing.
I am. It's a spectator sport that the prison system runs. That the all of the people that are in it are basically vying for their freedom and stuff.
Are you there?
So I mean, death races definitely come through an evolution, but as a beginning point, this is so.
I can't hear a thing, and I don't know why.
Go ahead, finish.
I was just saying that as a premise, as a start out point, this, after seeing all the other death races, the beginning one is so weak in terms of what it delivers. I wish, in a weird way, I could go back in time and sort of not remember, but not have seen it again this time, because I was so enamored with the whole idea to begin with. And now that I've seen it again, I feel a little bit disillusioned by the whole thing, because wow, this one was really underwhelming. And some of the other ones, even though they've been sort of crazy because they're not awesome, they are watchable and they're fun. They're super fun to watch. This one, not so much.
No, this wasn't fun to watch. It was a real chore to get through it. I try to not color it with the brush of expectations from like movies now, but that's kind of unfair because there was so many great films pre 1975, so and 75, so I don't, it's not from a technical standpoint. I don't. It's just from a storyline. I just didn't care, and I just didn't enjoy watching it. And you know, you didn't have really an idea of where the characters were at. I mean, they showed a map, but that was that was another thing that I didn't like. And then, to be honest with you, maybe the movie did it better than I'm giving it credit for, but I really didn't understand all the characters and what they actually were. Maybe it's because I was so disinterested. I didn't follow it. So I don't know if that's what it did. I mean, I don't. Maybe it was better than I gave it credit, because you mentioned something about something. I can't remember what it was. I forgot already that fast, and I was like, I didn't remember that from that movie. So, but yeah, it wasn't a fun film to watch.
Oh,
And disappointing.
I'm surprised. I mean, I did enjoy it, but I saw it as sort of a really cheesy black comedy where they were just, everything was over the top goofy, and I was kind of enjoying it for that, like a giant comic book. So it was like, okay, this is really dumb stuff that's happening. And but I was enjoying it. I mean, the violence was fun. Different car wrecks. I liked when Sylvester Stallone would be killing his own pit crew because they were mocking him, and that was that kind of over the top kind of nonsense. I liked the news commentators, and that was kind of interesting stuff, especially the ending where the guy's telling the whole history of violence over their credits. And I thought that was funny, and I enjoyed that. And it's like those little touches I enjoyed. I think some of the stuff is really dated, and you lose some of the other announcer, the woman who keeps going, a very good friend of mine, was taking the piss out of basically people like Rona Barrett and women reviewers back in the early 70s, that was the thing where Barbara Walters, and they were talking about, oh yes, blah blah blah, who was a very good friend of mine, and I want to talk to you, and they were kind of playing that up, so everybody was a very good friend of hers in this movie. I mean, it was little things like that. I kind of liked it. I mean, that's my opinion. Obviously, if it was a slog for you guys, it was a slog for you guys, and that's fair. I mean, it's not a good action film. If you're looking for the action, no. Like I said, the driving scenes are badly edited, and everything else.
I don't care about genre necessarily. It's just, do I enjoy, like, especially with the films that we review on here, do I enjoy the movie? Like, is it a good time? Mm-hmm. So whether it's action, drama, comedy, or whatever, that's what I look at, and I just didn't enjoy it. Okay. And I wanted to so much because it had David Carradine, Sylvester Stallone was in it, and a Roger Corman produced film. He didn't direct it.
No, he didn't direct it. No.
And I mean, it's an interesting subject. Yeah, your Jen, your mic still does something. But it's not the worst film that we've reviewed.
Oh God, no. But far from it.
But it's it was, yeah.
Okay,
I have an idea. I think that we should pitch George Miller to produce the next Death Race. What do you think?
But
no more Death Races.
I would go for it. I think it would be great, only if it's like the premise of that they have to run down people for points and everything, and that I want it to be that cheesy. I don't want it to be a film that takes itself seriously as if it's some sort of commentary on the world and everything. It's like, screw that. I just want to see a movie with carnage and people being run over by people and other people cheering for it.
Well, you should definitely latest Death Race then, because I really think that you would actually enjoy it. It's not. I mean, you can't look at it like it's going to be some kind of cinematic masterpiece. And I got to tell you, some of the acting is really bad, but it's so over the top. It has that over the top quality to it that makes it fun to watch, because it's just a bunch of driving and killing.
Right. Well, then I think I might like that. It's a turn your brain off, forget about anything. I mean, that's how I enjoyed this film. I mean, it is a bad film. It's a cheap film. Like I said, the action scenes are badly edited. And what you can see where they spent every dollar, and it's all cheap looking. The cars are the most things they spent the money on, and even then they all look goofy. And that plane, that was a weird looking thing too. I didn't know if that was a miniature or if that was an actual plane of some sort. But I mean, if I'm thinking about that when I'm watching the movie, then something's gone wrong.
I thought it was a drone. I was like, wow, they got drones back?
Well,
Yeah, that's what I
don't
thought
know.
too.
Yeah, but no, we didn't have drones back then.
Yeah.
70s, for God's sakes.
I was
Gas-
saying, though, we need to do a show, like a special episode, where we take a look at movies that are set in the future by at least 20 years and kind of rate it on what it got right. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, did it actually meet up to the time or whatever? And that might be interesting to do. So,
yeah. Sorry, I had a little thing going on back here. So can you just say that again? I am so sorry.
yeah, no, I was saying that we might need to do a show about movies that are set in the future by at least 20 years.
Oh yes.
And then kind of judge if it got it right or not.
Oh, I see.
You know?
Well, it got some things right. Don't forget, one of the prizes was a 50-inch TV set, which was something that was around. Well, wasn't even around in 2000. That was futuristic even for 2000.
Yeah, see that
There you go.
They got right.
Yeah, and the economy was going to go in the dumpers in the 2000s. They got that right.
That's right.
So that's 2 out of 2 right there.
Yeah, I just love how fondly Frankenstein. He's like, yeah, I lost my right arm in 97.
Yeah.
I lost my left leg in 98. And it's like,
okay, and really, who doesn't like the hand grenade joke?
Jesus. Yeah, I was like, oh, wow.
It's like, okay, you knew the film.
Hand grenade ex machina.
I would just like to know why in the dystopian future they think all the roads are going to be in such great shape. I mean, the roads aren't even in that good shape now.
Well, I think what it was is they made sure that the routes were ready for the race every year. Because I didn't see any other cars out there, you notice. There was nobody driving it there.
No,
but what I want to know is
whoever that mom was who let their kid out on the road actually needs to get their kid taken away. Because what mom in their right mind has their kid walking the road during death race?
One who doesn't want her kid? That's my thoughts.
You wouldn't let your kid out during death race?
No.
So here's the weird thing in the logic of the film. This is where they don't give a shit. Is every time they get a kill, it's obviously televised, and the guys, it's a good kill and everything. So obviously they're monitoring them. Yet the entire time they're not catching all this conversation between Frankenstein and his navigator and who she is and what they're up to and all this other stuff. And they don't know anything about any of these other things that are happening. Like, oh, you said you drove through the fire and everything. It's like, wait, wouldn't they have seen that when he was being ambushed? What happened? Because they're seeing everything else. It's like this film suddenly, decides it's watching itself.
Right.
It needs to, and then it doesn't. And it's like, it's very bizarre. Though I did like the news reporter Junior, the announcer. He made me laugh because he was just gross looking and really over the top excited. And and the actor playing him had a very strange credit. See if I can find it, because it wasn't like, hey, Joe Blow. It was like, let's find out who played Junior. Junior.
Yeah. As you
here it is. Don Steele, but it wasn't that. As the real Don Steele was his credit. So I don't know who the original Don Steele was or the fake Don Steele was, but he was the real Don Steele. So that is an interesting credit to have.
Yes. I don't know, man. This film, I don't know. I just didn't love watching it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Jen, are you there? Did we lose you, Jen?
No, she's just on mute.
I'm here. I actually, I have to say that despite the fact that I was like super underwhelmed by what I remembered, I still had a pretty good time watching the movie just because Death Race just has some nostalgic piece of my heart. I don't exactly even understand why, but I mean, it was still, it was terror bad, but it was terror bad in a way that was, yeah, this is Death Race. Like, I never expect anything awesome from Death Race because it's just, this is Death Race. But I mean, going back to that original point, I was underwhelmed by what I remembered to be sort of these iconic roles because I felt like they were bigger than life at the time. And when I went back now as an adult, I guess I dare say, they were just like, oh wow, okay, who are these puny people and why are they in these roles? This is awful.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't expect anything awesome. I just expect to be entertained. So
I think one of the navigators was Gopher from the Love Boat too, if I remember correctly. Right. Yeah. So.
Awful. Wow.
Yeah. Hey man, we need love on that.
He was the Nazi too. So.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? The Nazi team though, they played with a lot of spunk.
They did.
I love how they went out. That was hilarious. That was funny.
Yeah. That was funny.
So there was some good kills.
Actually, and I liked what happened to Calamity Jane's navigator. I thought that was hilarious, where she takes the navigator out, and that's worth points too. It's like, oh, okay, that's it. They really, don't care if they kill each other in the end.
Oh, I mean,
that's how.
My favorite kill of the whole movie was the girl that was the human sacrifice.
Really?
That was my favorite. Had any emotion attached to it at all.
No, and it should have, because she makes a point of introducing herself, and that should have been something that in better hands, it could have actually been a very interesting way to look at fandom and that kind of thing. But
that's exactly.
And maybe whoever was writing it, maybe that was what they were thinking they were doing, but the execution is weak as shit.
Wait, you get it?
Sorry. Oh, bad one.
The execution.
But, you'd figure that, if he ran down the rest of them, that would have been even funnier.
Yeah.
Oh, the doctors. Okay, hold on. The other one where the doctors and nurses are wheeling out the old people for Euthanasia Day. And he decides to do the U-turn and take out the doctors. And he said, whoa, he could have had 700 points and he only took, 50 or 60. Oh, well.
Well, yeah, euthanasia. Yeah. All right, so I think before we get to the scores, what do you guys think about how everything was resolved in the end? I mean, that was pretty dumb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He kills the president and he becomes the president. And then he abolishes the death race.
It was like he just all of a sudden changes up at the very end of the movie. It makes no sense.
It didn't make any sense. No,
and it's not supposed to. It's like, okay, maybe his whole goal in the whole time was to end the presidency, and that's all he cared about. But yeah, I don't know. It was. They were going like, okay, we're running out of time. Let's just end it. Okay, he kills the president. He becomes president, and then we run over the annoying announcer guy.
Right.
But hold on, the way they ended the film is still my favorite, which is the Walter Cronkite wannabe doing his history of violence started 300,000 years ago with the early primates.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. That was kind of fun. However, speaking of endings, let's go back to, or not the endings, but let's talk about the beginning. Remember how we were saying before, we always say, the opening of a film should be a window into what you're going to see. And this film's opening credits have to be the worst opening credits I've ever seen. They look so cheap. It's like, get my kid to draw a car and a couple of things here, and let's play some really bad music over it and flash some names. And it's so bad. It looks like something somebody would have done with an 8mm camera in their backyard. Okay, I'm going to do a movie called Death Race and hold the card up in front of the camera. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
terrible.
it was awful. It's like, okay, the film is cheap when the credits look that cheap. I mean, the just bad looking credits, and it's just hard to enjoy the film right from the start because you're like, oh my god, this is terrible. And it tries hard. I mean, it does try. It tries to entertain. So I give it that much.
Well, trying and doing is two different things. All right, so let's do it.
Okie doke. I think we should have had Joshua here because if I remember correctly, his scores were probably in line the way I was thinking about the film. But anyways,
well, Josh pretty much gave it 8 across the board.
I know.
Story 8, acting 8, score 8, production quality 8, and overall entertainment 8.
Maybe he watched the wrong film. Or it's just
So,
a fever. If he's got a fever, that's probably where he got those scores from.
So it got the highest score of any film, 40,
Yeah.
by one judge. So that gave
Wow.
it 40. So never fear, I come in.
With the lowest.
Lower
than Casino Royale.
Yeah,
I'm stunned.
But the difference between if I had a gun to my head, I would watch this one over at Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, taking that bullet is pretty enticing. But at least Casino Royale had some of the heavyweights in cinema history in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just that assembling of a talent was worth a lot.
But so badly used and not good. Like none of their acting was good.
I agree, but it's just I have a soft spot for Peter Sellers. I think he's one of the 5 greatest.
Yeah,
talents.
and he played it straight through that movie.
Right. So I know. All right. So story, I gave it a 4. Story, I didn't think it was amazing or anything like that. The acting, I gave a 3, which is very disappointing because I love David Carradine generally. Didn't love him in this film. And Sylvester Stallone was freaking horrible. And to be honest, it wasn't his fault, I imagine. Like, I didn't understand the whole thing when he had, what did he have, clam chowder? He was eating it with his hands. And like, it was just weird.
It was.
The score and sound design, I gave it a 2. It was nothing, it's probably unfair because it probably had one of the lowest budgets of all the films that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to judge what it's in front of me. And the production quality, I gave it a 5 because I like the look of the cars. So, that was pretty cool. And I did like how Frankenstein looked, the Frankenstein look.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the thing that I liked the most about the film was some of the imagery with the different production design.
Mm.
Overall entertainment value, I gave it a 3 because I just wasn't entertained by this film.
Okay.
And so I gave it a 17.
Okay.
So Jen.
Gave this movie a 5 across the entire board except overall entertainment. Overall entertainment, I actually gave it a 7 because even though I was disappointed, I still like it. So yeah, it's 5 for everything. Entertainment. And if I could say something about the designs for the cars, the designs for the cars were so ridiculous if you really think about it, but they looked really cool as they were driving. It reminded me of something like out of Batman, where you've got like sort of over the top ridiculous designs. And kudos to whoever it was that was really driving those cars, because that must have been quite a difficult thing to do. I cannot imagine that those things were very aerodynamic.
No.
One other observation that I was thinking about when I was watching it was, this is like the original sort of we all shop at Hot Topic kind of costuming. The costuming was like so silly in some places that it really did make me laugh. And I especially was laughing at Sylvester Stallone's pink tie. I don't know why, but it was just so funny and out of place. Like, who thought that was a good choice?
I like the Frankenstein fan club where all they wear is a black sweater that says F on it.
See,
It's like,
telling you,
wow, these
they're
people
the
really turned into
original
marketing.
emo girls. Seriously, they are the original emo girls.
All right. My score is here for the story. I'm giving it a 6 because at least it was sort of original. It had an interesting idea. Not a great, and there was some interesting ideas hidden in there that just weren't executed great. I mean, there was a bit of commentary on the way news sensationalizes violence for entertainment value. Bits about, sports in general. And I kind of give it a little bit of credit where credit's due in some cases. And there was actually some funny bits in it that made me laugh. And they were intentionally supposed to be funny. So the acting, I'm going to be generous and give it a 4. I didn't think any of the acting was really anywhere spectacular. Carradine looked bored through most of the movie until he did his weird laugh. Stallone was just chewing up the scenery so bad. He was yelling every line. And after a while, you just kind of... Score and sound design. We're giving that a 3. Monofilm. I mean, sure, you got the revving of the motors every so often, but it's just, it's just not really well done. Production quality, overall look of the film, this thing was cheap. I appreciated the cars. I did. Even the matte paintings, as bad as they were, at least was sort of an effort to make this look futuristic. But generally, the whole thing looks so cheap. I have to give it a 5. But entertainment value, I give it an 8. I enjoy this film. It is a terrible film. It is bad. I don't suggest it to anybody, but I do enjoy it. I watched it twice, just in the last couple of days. I'm sorry, but I do enjoy this film. For as bad as it is, there's moments in it that makes me laugh, and the over-the-top violence is funny in places. I noticed that when Frankenstein kills somebody, there's no blood. When Machine Gun Joe kills somebody, it's like very bloody and gross. And it's sort of like, okay, so you're supposed to not like Machine Gun Joe because he's more violent than Frankenstein. Now, there you go.
Jen, do your thing.
Okay, so I really had to think about this for a while because once again, this movie sort of stumped me in terms of like, well, what is it that you would actually eat to watch the movie Death Race? And so I had to sort of come up with something original, and what I came up with was donuts. And before you think that maybe donuts don't work for Death Race, you'll have to go to the blog to look at how we did donuts. But basically, we turned the donuts into car wheels, and we have it's the Death Race dessert, and it's really good. They turned out really cute. But I swear, much like the film, it's sort of all calorie and not really a bunch of anything. So that was
Wow.
Not a clam dip?
No, I thought I went back and forth about all kinds of stuff to do for this film, including just plain up like shots of whiskey and stuff. But the tires turned out really cute. Like if we were actually to put this into kind of a cake mold, it would have looked really cool. But I think the donuts are plenty.
What we also forgot to talk about was the senseless nudity in this film.
Oh God, that was so senseless.
It was completely pointless, and the actresses had to contort themselves in very strange poses to make sure they didn't show too much. And it was very weird and not erotic at all. It just kind of was like, ugh, why are they doing this? This is pointless.
Hey, I like it.
It was pointless.
The massage scene was really ridiculous and so over the top.
Yeah. But you knew why they had it there, right? Got to get the horny teens in the drive-in to see some skin.
Well, call me a horny teenager because I enjoyed it.
Oh, it's the only part of the film you enjoyed. Maybe you should bump up your rating then a little, eh? For entertainment factor.
Well, this movie got a total score of 110, which is a 55% on the cheese rating. So let's look at the leaderboard.
Okie doke.
And the leaderboard, starting from the bottom, number 9, we have Casino Royale. Number 8, Rollerball. Number 7, The Car. Number 6, The Towering Inferno. New on the board, number 5, Death Race. Number 4, Body Double. Number 3, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Number 2, The Dead Zone. And number 1 still is Dawn of the Dead. So, yeah.
So Death Race ended up scoring higher than you thought.
Yes. So kudos to that.
Was it better than Towering Inferno? Yes. Better than The Car? Yes.
That's debatable.
The Car was bad. Not terrible, just bad.
I actually like The Car more.
Me too, actually.
Oh, yeah.
The Car was more dangerous the cars were more dangerous in Death Race than they were in The Car.
Yeah, I would say, you know how
they didn't have that annoying beeping that they did, every time you attack somebody.
I would say, one way you can guess which one was better was by my mother's reaction, and my mother watched both The Car and Death Race, and I would say that my mother, if she had a gun to her head, she would probably choose The Car. I think she actually enjoyed The Car.
Yeah, I like your mom. She's pretty awesome.
Why do you keep putting a gun to her head to make her watch movies?
Look, some movies you need a gun to make her watch. Okay. No, she did not like. My mother did not like Death Race. She said, "Who picked this?"
I did, and I'm proud to have done it. I love this film.
My mother was not.
It was a nasty skin that she saw. She didn't like that. You're watching dirty movies with your mother. Shame on you.
I'm watching dirty movies with my mother. Hilarious.
Yeah, that's dirty too.
Yeah. Well, I would say that my mother has been grown for a while now. So let's do the hold on one second.
What's on tap for next week?
Go over what's next week.
What's next?
Sorry, I should have had it already.
Hey, we're going into the home stretch now, aren't we? I think.
Yeah. Only 2 films left. Yes. Okay, so next week is Strange Brew, the 1983 film. In their quest for free beer, bumbling Canadian brothers Bob and Doug McKenzie wind up working at the Elsinore Brewery. The hapless lads uncover a sinister mind control plot spearheaded by brewmaster Max von Sydow and must stop the scheme, which also includes Uncle Claude, played by Paul Dooley, a member of the Elsinore family. As Bob and Doug try to prevent Smith from taking over the world, they also manage to drink plenty of their favorite beverage. This movie came out on August 19th, 1983, and Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas directed the film, and they wrote the screenplay. I didn't know that.
Yep.
So with a budget of $4 million, so I didn't know that. That's interesting. So that's next week's film.
There you go.
Now that's another movie that I seen a long time ago, and I remember it being really good. So we'll see if.
Well, you may be remembering wrong, but hopefully you'll get a couple of laughs out of it.
I remember those characters were pretty popular, with the commercials and all of that kind of stuff.
Hey, I just want to congratulate each and every one of us for this week not making any autoerotic asphyxiation jokes. Oh, jeez, I just ruined it.
I thought that through the whole movie. The whole movie, I'm sitting there thinking, like, it's kind of the way he went out.
Yeah. And
But I didn't have the heart to. I didn't have the heart to mention that.
Yeah, me neither. Oops. It just came out.
Yeah.
Anyways, I guess that would be the wrap for this turkey, and it's now in the bin. So 2 more to go. So hopefully, and then the showdown between the top 2 should be interesting. Unless there's a huge upset, I'm guessing Dawn of the Dead will still be on the top.
I believe so too. That one will definitely probably be there.
It's just
so
what would be number 2? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Unless somehow the next 2 films we see are that much more entertaining than everything else. Who knows?
Yeah.
Cross my fingers. We'll see. Oh, I think we lost Jen. So I think
3 minutes. Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And how can we? Okay, you can get me at Kente F on Instagram. On Twitter. You can get me at Kente Ferguson on Instagram. And how can we get you?
Gmail, kingpenguin at gmail.com. Or you can catch my YouTube channel, the Professor Psycho's Movie Madhouse, where there's all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff that nobody watches.
All right. And you can get Jen at Following Bliss. We'll catch you next week.
Bye.